fellow jazz bums. Today, we are super excited to have our second guest for our interview series, Zev Feldman. Zev, thank you for being here. Before we get into it, just remember to like and subscribe. We also have a Jazz Bum Discord server. Please join that. Come hang out and chat with us. And then also on Fridays at 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern, we live stream on our channel. So feel free to come and hang out there as well. With that, I'm going to kick it over to Felipe to start us off.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much, Zev, for joining us today, for agreeing to be on our channel. This is our second interview in the series, and we're very glad and delighted that you're here, you're able to make it. So Zev, probably most of people in jazz, into jazz or archival or anything related to music history and knows something about him. He's been in the business for decades, more than 25 years. He's the producer, co-founder, president of Resonance Records. He's in Los Angeles. It's a label very well regarded and known for archival reissues, and we're going to talk about that a little later. He also is a consultant for Blue Note. He worked with Polygram, Universal, Rhino, Concord. He won many critics polls, including Downbeat Magazine. Stereophile even called him the Indiana Jones, and also he's now known as a jazz detective. And he brought us great releases like Bill Evans, Wes Montgomery. He's been also working with Elemental Records, Sunset, Rio Gone, Rio to Rio, Jazz Detective, which is, I think, was the most recent label, right?
Yeah.
Go over many. He also worked with the Monk, Palo Alto, with Impulse. He's from the DC area, not far from where I used to live back there. A lot of things in common. And Zev, welcome to the channel. We're delighted and honored that you're able to make it and have some good conversation with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. It's really great to meet you guys here in person. And I just got to say, I love all of your passion and enthusiasm, and you're just it's wonderful. And I feel like we're all cut from the same cloth, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today. I hope I don't break anything.
We're really glad to have you. So I guess let's get into some questions. Kind of the first thing was, I wonder if you could give us some insight into your personal journey into jazz. Like, when did you first get into it? Have your preferences evolved over time? And then are there any specific musicians who kind of played a crucial role, moving you along the journey?
Well, it's interesting. I think, like, as far back as I can remember, jazz has been a part of my surroundings in my home growing up. My dad and my mom are enormous jazz fans. And they were always trying to expose me to all sorts of great music, and jazz being one of those. And also my mother also with classical music, and there were some show tunes at home, Greek folk music, anything you can imagine, Beatles. But it was really my mom and my dad, and especially my father. And to give you a little bit of some background, jazz is a big part of my family lineage, especially on my father's side of the family. My great grandparents had 7 children, and they even had a family band. And my great uncle, my grandmother's brother, 2 of them were very known in certain circles in music. My great uncle, the late great Alvin Abe Aaron, who, by the way, is the first entry in the Leonard Feather Encyclopedia of Jazz. He played with Les Brown and the Band of Renown, Horace Heidt, Jack Teagarden, and he toured the world with, like, Les Brown and Bob Hope on these USO tours, and there's actually film footage. He's a celebrated hero in my family. My other great uncle, Joe Aaron, was an educator in the Milwaukee public school systems and a professional reed player, a virtuoso, and someone who were these heroes in my family growing up, talking about these people. I got to know my Uncle Abe and even saw him. That was my first club experience, was going to see him. But music is really close to our family. Again, not just them, but we have other, classically trained musicians in my family. And it's something of a high regard. And jazz seems to be this language, this culture, something that connects you and me, all of us. And it's been a part of my background. But, talk about a musician or an experience or something that really brought me over. I'll tell you, I was listening when I was a young person to a lot of classic rock, but pop music. And I remember the pop station was playing the Rolling Stones and the Who and Motown and all sorts of stuff. It was a different time. But I remember my father always wanting to turn the dial to WDCU FM here in Washington or WPFW, and it was always listening to jazz. I remember my father playing for me Wes Montgomery, but also Nancy Wilson and Cannonball Adderley, and trying to instill in me that there's all this other great music, Zev. It's not all this pop music. And although that was fine and we liked that too, but to flash forward a little bit, something that really connected with me. I was in my teens. I was probably somewhere around maybe 15 or 16. And mind you, at that point, I was listening to the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Hendrix and the Who and Led Zeppelin, Cream, Clapton, all this stuff that was really became very central to me. And what it was, though, I found myself really gravitating towards the improvisational element, listening to guitar solos, listening to the way those ideas were formed. And it really primed me and became a bridge into this music. And I remember being in my teens, maybe again, maybe I was 15. I saw Miles Davis on TV. It may have been a Grammy performance. I can't remember exactly. It was sometime in the late 80s. And I just was really struck with this man's coolness, vibe, the music that was playing, something different. And then I remember going to the record store, wanting to find some music for Miles. And I tell people this, like when you're younger, you're growing, we're all evolving as people. But I remember someone saying, "Oh, Miles Davis, Zev, you're the rock guy. You got to listen to Bitches Brew. That's like jazz rock." I'm going to tell you something now. And you know what? I come back to that album these days and regard it as just such a triumph in terms of this music and the improvisation and the players. Oh my gosh. But at the time, it went right over my head. I couldn't, I was trying to gel with this many, many listens. And I come back to that album and I regard it as one of the great achievements in this music, along with a lot of other recordings. But I went back to the record store after Bitches Brew, and I said, I'm going to keep digging a little further back. And I got Roundabout Midnight, produced by the great George Avakian, and that was my intro to Miles and Coltrane and Red Garland and Paul Chambers and Philly Joe Jones. Mm-hmm. And I still remember when I heard A Lucha for the first time, the second track on the record, it was just something that, like serotonin, something in my brain, there was some sort of chemical like it gave me. And I remember kind of like, I've had these blackout experiences when listening before where the music and the feeling and emotion becomes so intense, so exciting. And it was just something that gave me the chills and made me excited. And I kept digging further and I kept listening and I kept trying to expand. So those were like very important musical, experiences for me. Miles is like a lot of us. He was our gateway in before listening to Freddie Hubbard and Kenny Durham and Charles Tolliver and Woody Shaw. Like, it started there and the journey is long. The road is long. It's so much about self-discovery. And at least it's been that way for me, like trying to listen to as much music as I can. So,
yeah.
Awesome.
That's fantastic. Yeah, Miles was also a gateway for me as well. And I think that Roundabout Midnight that had the original quintet, so that really is kind of a great entry point where you can go back to this prestige stuff, or you can go forward with the stuff with Gil Evans. So that is a wonderful record.
Yeah.
So our next question here, moving into some of your labels. You have a multiplicity of them, and they're from Resonance to Reel to Jazz Detective, and I'm sure I'm missing some there. We just wanted to know, when you have a new project, how do you find the right fit for it? And yeah, what's the approach for when you find something new, where you're going to place it?
Oh, thanks, Mike. It's a little complicated sometimes, and sometimes it's not complicated, but I'm going to break it down. So much of what I'm looking for, what I'm doing when I find a recording, first of all, I need to be really ignited. I have to be so amped up. A big part of what I do is trying to find a home. If I have to be really energized and listen to something and feel inspired and be like, man, we have to bring this out. But it's often about the identity of a label. It's often about having opportunities, maybe people who want me to bring them projects. I'm very lucky, very, very lucky. And I want to say that because of the generosity of George Claben, my co-president at Resonance Records, the founder of Resonance and the Rising Jazz Stars organization that brought me in. He's very selfless, and he has been like, I'll bring projects in, and he'll be like, I'm not interested. Why don't you go take it to one of your other friends at one of the other record companies? You certainly do it. I just, record labels can't do everything. There's limited resources to go around, and it takes, it's a variety of factors, but it's about if I know, like with Corey, for example, Corey Weeds at Reel to Reel, a lot of this music, so much of it, all of it, has been because we have connections with these artists, whether it's Sonny Stitt and Shirley Scott or Walter Bishop Jr. We're kind of on these wavelengths of personal taste. So it's a culmination of the identity of the label or the label owner or the guy that's going to be investing in the project. And that's a big part of what it is too. And also, I have labels that I'm bringing stuff to, but it's really about finding the fit. Do I want it to be? Do I want it to come out? Do I want to be a producer? And by the way, there's a vetting process that we really have to take very seriously, very careful, yeah, moves. Just we have to evaluate these things. We have to, look at everything that goes into it. But it's been very exciting now because it's afforded me the opportunity of working with a wide array of different companies and individuals and a lot of generous people that have gotten behind my enthusiasm and have helped find a way of bringing these projects out. I just want to be able to give birth to them basically. And it's Herculean sometimes in terms of the efforts and the lobbying and the determination and persuading people because there's only so much sometimes that these companies can do. But haven't I been lucky? And thanks to George, he's totally cool with me doing that, and it's been an amazing road. I'm just speechless when I think about how great of a situation I have, and I just really, I thank my lucky stars every day. I really do. Love what I'm doing, and I love having the support from the fans and guys like yourself who echo that passion. I feel like we're all in this together. It's a journey. It's also a fight sometimes, and having to, do things and you got to also make the numbers work because we live and die by these numbers, which are enough to, you're mortgage your house against, and having a chance to really know going in, eyes wide open, that something is sustainable. A lot of these projects are not very big commercial sellers, but in a limited edition form, we can find a way of making the economics work. But more importantly, again, finding the way for the music to come out. So yeah, it's been amazing.
That's pretty awesome, Zev. So now just I think kind of connecting a little bit your journey to this point now of the re-releases. First, one name that you always mention is Wes Montgomery, and I think it was their first big project, right?
It really was. There were two. There was a Wes Montgomery and a Bill Evans release. Wes Montgomery, Echoes of Indiana Avenue, which I think we started working on 2010, 2011. And then Bill Evans Live at Top of the Gate, which were George Claben's personal tapes that he had made.
Right.
And yeah, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't cut you off.
No. And second, so given on that trend, so when you decide on a project, you're locking, let's say, let's do a hypothetically like a Sonny Rollins thing. So how it kind of works? Like how do you get the tape or the recording or whatever it is, find out who the players were, because sometimes it's hard to find if they're playing on European tours on a bar or something. Photos, the line notes. I know you put a lot of effort in the liner notes in the booklets. That's like half of the product, I think. So how does that process kind of yeah, works.
Well, it's interesting, right? I think it starts with identifying and finding a recording that we like, and then being able to find, make sure, do we have, what are the sources? Do we have something we can work with? And of course, working with the artist themselves or with their estate. There are all these very turnkey sort of components to it. It starts with having great music, and we're also protecting so many of these artists' legacies that these artists aren't around with us. So we really need to be very respectful and responsible with the judgment. It's never been about, oh man, it's a rare tape, we just got to put it out. Is it good? Does it serve the artist's legacy? Is there something new going on there? And to talk about Sonny Rollins, just for an example, and I have to say, one of the greatest thrills of my entire career has been having the opportunity to work with this man on now 2 occasions on productions. And also, I worked in sales and marketing for a while. We did an in-store performance together when his 9/11 Without a Song record came out on Milestone, uh, 2005. And he's someone who I've been enamored with, it seems like, for decades and decades. I mean, I had a chance to see him in concert and to meet him even when I was younger, and he's just an incredibly kind human being. And there's something about the human experience with this man which I've learned a lot about being a, there's a lot of lessons with this man. He's so wise, and it goes far beyond music. And that has been really one of the gifts. And it doesn't always work out that way, but sometimes you get a chance to know these people a little bit more. And that's been a thrill. Um, but working with Mr. Rollins was great. We did Rollins and Holland several years ago, and those tapes came to us from the Netherlands Jazz Arc. I know a producer over there, but found these tapes. He contacted me. It was like, there's a studio session. Stop the presses. What do you mean? That's like, by the way, we always have lots of different types of recordings. Live tapes are something that really capture the essence and the excitement in this music in an incredible medium, which is often so difficult to compare to. But a studio record is almost a different kind of statement, and we've been involved in that with Sonny Rollins from Rollins and Holland. We also did this Bill Evans some other time, which you know about. I was even involved with a Thelonious Monk record from 1959 called Les Liaisons Dangereuses, which came out on Sam Records and Saga Music. There it is right
This
there.
is a wonderful record.
Thank you. Francois Lexon and Fred Thomas were so instrumental and generous to contact me and brought me along the journey with them. And that's really that's another career highlight. But it's a studio record. It's a different kind of thing. But you find these recordings, you have to really evaluate it. Is the music good or is it great? And does it serve a purpose in terms of enriching a chapter of an artist? In some cases, we also just happen to find amazing live recordings after live recordings. Bill Evans, and those are important too. But anyways, you find a recording, you have to determine if it's good. You have to work with the families or with the artists themselves. And Mr. Rollins, when he heard the recordings from Holland, was very supportive of this endeavor. And it also gave us an opportunity of taking a recording that had been bootlegged, that we put along with it. And also, we found a television performance, like in a TV studio. We had audio from that. So we were able to put that together. It's all about is the stars and moon going to align themselves and things work out. The energies of the universe have an interesting way of making these projects happen. Sometimes projects aren't meant to be for a variety of reasons. And it can be an emotional roller coaster being involved in these efforts, but it's about doing that. And it's about doing it. It happens that way. And anyways, so I'm very excited. Mr. Rollins and Resonance Records are working together now on a release for later next year, which is going to be remarkable.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a 4 LP box set.
Oh, wow.
And it's going to be it's a major undertaking for us. And and Mr. Rollins has been in support of it, and I'm just over the moon. But I'm going to keep my lip tight for right now. But I'll tell you guys offline. But I want people to know that there's great stuff coming. The next 18 months alone are going to be an amazing journey for us. And all of us, and I mean, we all share this together. And I hope everyone feels that way, because I can't do what I'm doing unless you guys and the fans out there are supporting it. And we always try to do what we can and raise
Yeah. I think it was another interview that you gave recently that you teased that there may be a Chet Baker in the queue.
There is another Chet Baker project that I'm in the process of working on, which is going to be a never before released studio album.
Oh.
And that's going to be another unissued studio album. Actually, we were trying to put that out sooner along Blue Room, but we decided let that breathe on its own, which is another wonderful release. I've had the good fortune of working with the Chet Baker estate now on 3 projects, going back to Live in Paris, which came from these recordings that Radio France had in 1983, I believe 1982 as well. And it's exciting. It's really exciting. And by the way, speaking of Chet Baker, I brought an autographed Jerry Mulligan record. I thought we were going to do show and tell. This is an album. I think this is from his signed. Thanks, Chet Baker, 1956.
Wow.
And this is part of a very special collection. I have some other things that I brought, including Les Brown. Anyways, I'll spare it.
Yes, yeah. We'll get into them.
Yeah. But, listen, just to comment on the booklets and the editorial, I take that as a really serious opportunity and responsibility. When I started doing these releases, going back to the Wes Montgomery and the Bill Evans releases, it was really about, I had this mentality of trying to raise the bar in terms of editorial and doing something actually a little different. I'm inspired by Mosaic. I'm inspired by what Michael Lang and Richard Seidel were doing at Verve in the 90s with their prolific box sets, whether it was Best of the Songbooks from Ella or Duke and Ella, the Côte d'Azur, Clifford Brown, Mercury recordings, the Mercury box set, all this great stuff, the Jazz at the Philharmonic box sets, all sorts of stuff where we have a story to tell. But I wanted to really raise the bar. I wanted us to have a discussion and a narrative to be able to discuss with a writer, to interview musicians that were alive, maybe somebody who put on the concert, somebody that was there, maybe it's an artist who plays the same instrument that can give us some really thought-provoking commentary. And I really try to go after that. The photographs also are something that we spend a great deal of time doing research on, trying to find images. And by the way, it's an enormous amount of work and expense. We license and pay for these images. They're all negotiated for. But I think it's really important because alongside with having wonderful design work, and I get a chance especially to work with Burton Yount and John Sellards and Daryl Norson and some great designers. But it's really about trying to get these elements to come together. When a record is sitting on the shelf in a store, I really try to have the front of the house looking really nice. I want to bring people in. I want them to be, what is that? I got to have that. There's something. I mean, we have had, I think I speak for all of us, that we've had these experiences where the music, the artistry, the culture, the album cover design, these sort of things, it's a multitude of factors that hit on our nerves, if you will. Like they connect with us in this way and they really bring you in more. I take the artwork as being such an important step. The music is always first and foremost, but the presentation to me is important. And I think that we can also recognize that there have been albums that have come out in years past that maybe we even passed on because they didn't look good. You didn't know what was inside. So let's dress it up. Let's go for it. I mean, and the other thing is George Claben said to me many years ago, Zev, these records are going to live on past our lifetimes.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, I tell people it's like casting a tattoo. So we've got to do the best job that we can. Sometimes even we miss something in the booklet or things happen. But we have a team of us. And by the way, I'm one dude that's here with you guys, but I have Zach Shelby Cisco that works with me on so much of this work. and my editor, John Koenig, and the different other producers and label mates that, I mentioned Corey before. I'm one guy, but it takes a team of us, and really to know what we're going for and what we want to do and what we're trying to accomplish. So anyways, it's very exciting. And there's a lot to come that's going to be coming in the next year and a half, to look forward to.
Well, I've really noticed, like, the last record store day, there was so much stuff compared to like previous record store days where there would be one or two titles. And I gotta tell you, I love the whole thing about considering the artist legacy that you talk about, because there's so much stuff out there that you can go. I mean, it was released in the 70s or whenever, and you buy it because it's got an artist you like, and then it's just not great. It's just kind of sad, and you're like, okay, well, I wish I would have not spent that $10 on this record now. But I've never experienced that with one of your records, so I do appreciate the whole legacy thing. And
thank you.
And it's the excitement around all these products you guys are putting out is in our community is huge.
Yeah, I so appreciate that. I'll just say selfishly, I'm having the greatest time of my life, but also like stressing a little bit sometimes too, because it's very emotionally charged, from the creation of these things to making sure that we get them to retail and making sure that our forecasts and this business side. I hate talking about the business, but it's important, because if I make the label owners happy and the people that I have to work with, we can keep going. And I really like to say these words, let's keep going, every time, because it's, I don't know, I feel that there's so much more music that needs to come out. I'm sitting on a mountain of incredible recordings, but you don't just have a tape. You got to do all this work that comes along with it, and that's a part of it.
I recently got the reissue of the Eric Dolphy Musical Prophet, and
thank you.
It's fantastic. And I think, just speaking about the liner notes, I think liner notes doesn't give it enough justice, because there's interviews, there are liner notes, there's a lot of engaging material, and I don't feel like it's like overwhelming in the sense that I would have to sit down and read through it like over a day or two. But this is something that you can kind of jump around, and it's engaging. Like, you can like read the interview, and then you can go back and look at the photos, and there's a lot of just different types of materials in there, and I feel like it makes for a more engaging experience. Nothing against just like reading through liner notes in a book, but I think I like that there's like a variety of perspectives from the musicians and other reviewers and things like that. So I think that's a really fun piece, which kind of plays into this archival aspect of it, where yes, it's about the music first, but let's contextualize it. Let's bring people in to discuss it. Let's make this more of an event and a celebration. And I feel like that, especially with this Musical Prophet, Eric Dolphy, I'm so happy this was reissued. So thank you for making that happen.
Sure, no problem. I thank George Claben. It's funny. I think about George and what he's said to me. Zev, we are a museum. Like, we are building these exhibits. And that is like a total example of the experience, right? Because we interviewed people. We went to the Library of Congress and went through Dolphy's personal effects that were there. And, more than that, it's like, it's investigative music journalism too.
Yeah.
And that's a loaded thing, because this is a really important part of the job, and I don't think I'm really worthy of that, but that's what I'm going for. I want you and all the other fans out there to be able to lift this record or CD off the shelf years from now and still having enjoyable experiences with it. But there's more than just putting the music out and shoving it out the door. Like, how great can we make this? And anyways, George is like an example of such generosity. This man has afforded us as our team to go in, and we'll have instances. We're working on this Wes Montgomery release in the fall that's coming, and I have all this incredible editorial: Herbie Hancock, Ron Carter, Marcus Miller, Mike Stern, Bill Frisell. And I'm like, George, can we go to 58 pages for the booklet, please, on the CD, and then do the insert? Ironically, the LP inserts for materials are usually much cheaper. But when we do these things, we make the packages consistent in each configuration. but you need to be really mindful of what we're ordering, what we're selling, and you know what? It raises the bottom. It affects the bottom line price. But George is like, go for it. But I'm like, man, like we're having an opportunity of going really in depth and providing some commentary from people that folks wouldn't normally maybe even expect to read from, or I don't know, want there to be an abundancy of information. But I'm glad that that's receptive with you guys, because sometimes we wonder, does anybody even read the stuff? And I really don't care. I think we need to do it for the books, for history's sake.
I think it differentiates what you guys are doing from a lot of, I mean, it's archival, but I think the whole package, it really is different than what anyone else is doing.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, think about, we like old stuff, and sometimes we want to read more about it. Oh, there's a book, but it's out of print. Things like this. So you gotta go second market and buy it. It's expensive. So on that regard, Zev, just have you guys ever considered putting out a book together?
We have actually, it came up about, hey, wouldn't it be interesting to do a collection of all the interviews that we've done with people over the years and publish that as something standalone? I just think like maybe in the day to day, I get kind of caught up in other things that are little shiny things that are causing my attention to go here and go there. But it's something that I think we should come back to. I think it's really important. And as you guys know, like interviews have been published by a number of folks over the years and all sorts of different subjects. And it's important for the art. I also like to say, hey, go pick up the album. You can learn about it from there. But I don't know. We got to come back to that. I think it would be really nice to do that. I will say that for the images, we'd have to relicense photographs, because when we do deals for these releases, they pertain to the individual projects. But you know what? I think it's worthwhile. I appreciate you bringing it up, Philippe. Thanks, man.
It's cool.
Yeah, it'd be amazing. Felipe had a good point. Well, let me take this a different way real quick. So your legacy of your family and all the listening and learning you've done and all the work you've done for this music is amazing. The three of us, me and Mike specifically, have only been listening to jazz for a few years, right? Like we started with the pandemic, like a lot of people, and we've stuck with it. And these releases, I keep them all together on one shelf, right? Like all the stuff that you put out, I keep them all together, and I go back to them, and they just keep giving new things, right? Like if I bought like this Bill Evans behind me, that came out last year, I think. But let's say I bought one 2 years ago and I listened to it at the time, and I haven't listened to it since. I break it out again, I put it back on the turntable, and I'm getting so much more from it now, just from the experience of listening to other things. It's really special.
Thanks for saying that. Well, it's nice to know. It's interesting. Bill Evans, right? I was speaking with someone about this yesterday. He's really an interesting example of cross-pollination in terms of different audiences, and a lot of folks that discovered Bill through these record store day releases as, hey, it's something collectible. But look, there's an example. We really wanted to make something so classy, so elegant, so beautiful, and using that imagery, and look what happened. Like we've been able to affect other people. We're making them fans along the way and bringing them over. That's something truly exciting. And I've spoken with Bill Evans' son, Evan Evans, about how, over the last 20 years, especially last 15, there's been something that's really been accomplished in terms of raising the awareness of the legacy of this artist. We play a small part in it, but it's from that sort of testimonial and reaching over. It's beautiful. And then, and now you're infected in a fan. But in a great way. It's listening, and it's sharing, and it's experiencing, and there's always so much music that we can hear in one lifetime too. It's like I'm trying to listen to as much stuff, but I'm really honored. I mean, it's really great to know that for you guys and other folks out there, maybe this is the way that it kind of came around. It's great.
For sure. So let's talk about the tapes, because those seem like to be a very important part of this whole thing, right?
Sure.
How have you located tapes over time? Does it vary, and has it changed? Like, since you started to now, how has that kind of worked?
Well, it's interesting. I think things have gotten a little bit easier as the years have gone by, as you create a track record and build a reputation for the work that you're doing, which is a blessing. But it's interesting. I remember it all started like this. This must have been sometime around 2009, 2010. And, I've always been like this big music nerd and into the facts and the history and the folklore. And here's when this was recorded, and here's who the sidemen were on this recording. And George Clavin said to me at Resonance one day, Zev, I'm so surprised. So you've never produced an album before? I said, no. I was sales and marketing guy and distribution on the label side. It was different. Everyone stays in their lane, okay? You don't get a chance to work in the other departments, especially at a larger company. And this is just the way of the world, like it is. Maybe some other people have been lucky. Wasn't my experience. So I'm at Resonance, and George and I were really connecting and really discovered how passionate both of us were. And he extended the olive branch into some amazing kindness into my life, which changed things. And he said to me one day, Zev, I'm surprised that you haven't produced. Let me make a proposal to you. I don't want to put out reissues, but if you can go out and you can find music that's never been released before, and I like the music, guess what? I'll let you produce it for me.
Wow.
And I tell people this was Fire on Gasoline. And then all of a sudden, every waking minute was like, who else can I call? I started pestering Michael Cascuna for the longest time, who, by the way, has a relationship with George Clavin going back to the 1960s when George was spinning records and programming WKCR in New York. And Michael would call and win the radio contests and win tickets and albums. That
Wow.
they've known each other. And, like your boss will tell you sometimes, maybe in this case, you're an extension of your boss. So I started calling Michael, and he was very gracious and would give me leads with people. And then he called us about this West Montgomery project one day for Echoes of Indiana Avenue, what became that. But look, I'm calling people, I'm calling archives, and it was a lot of tenacity because this is what I wanted to be doing, reaching out to families, getting it, George had these Bill Evans tapes from Top of the Gate that he had made in 68 with Eddie Gomez and Marty Morell that had never been leaked. And that came from his archive. So I had that, but we put out the West Montgomery Bill Evans, and it was like putting on a new wing of our building in terms of validating this work that we had been doing. And those first two projects, the critical acclaim gave George the confidence for us to keep going. And, we're not just interested in putting out archival. George has a new Yvonne Lynn's record. He has championed a lot of living artists, and our label has also become a home for that. But he has a special connection and recognizes that this work that we're doing on the archival side reaches a lot of people, and it actually can sell sometimes and not be a money loser. I mean, it's really difficult when you're running a company. There's overhead, other stuff, and Resonance is a division of a 501c3 that George created. This is all generosity, and he's allowed us to keep going with our small family to make these records. But let me tell you though, it comes in different ways. Like it's from me finding stuff. For instance, got plugged in with the French government, with the folks at INA in Paris who oversee the legendary ORTF and Radio France archives. That's where Larry Young came from, Grant Green, Funk in France, West Montgomery in Paris, Albert Eiler at the Mate Foundation. And it's that kind of relationships that you also build where they allow you to go in to their archives, and it's a lot of searches that are done. Christiane Lemaire at INA has become a dear friend. She is a saint. She is someone that has believed and supported me, and we have done countless jobs. I feel like it's excavation going into and find their vaults and finding tapes and
So is INA connected to the French radio? Is that the same entity?
Yes, and it's actually a part of the French government, and INA basically oversees the radio and television archives, where they are cataloged and stored in actually a variety of different facilities. The Europeans, as we all know, and especially the French, man, they did an amazing job documenting this music. And we did it here in the States too. Don't, I'm not trying to, but there's something about the history. We have found these things. That album behind you, Larry Young in Paris,
Yeah.
maybe one of the most riveting journeys that I've been on. Why? Because Larry Young to me hits me in my heart. He's somebody that inspired me. And then you see a list of different, I did a list. Do you have any Larry Young? And then I see all this stuff that comes up. What is that? I want to hear. But it's driven by, a lot of this is driven by passion. So much of it is. And again, having to convince George. And then it was amazing. We found all these photographs from Francis Wolff that had never been published before that Michael Cascuna had at the time. So, it's really cool, man. But anyways, we get phone calls from people and emails of people that reach out. Hey, I found something. Or, hey, would you ever be interested in doing a release from this artist? I mean, it's been amazing. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, but not everything gets to come out. We can be a kid in the candy store, but not all that candy is meant to be eaten. And some of it needs to be left behind sometimes too. We have to really make those important decisions. And at least I do. And I think though, unfortunately, there's some record labels out there will love to just jam stuff out just based on who the artists are and not even paying them. You see my name on the package, the families have been contacted and negotiated with. We would never do anything against their will. It all starts and stops with them.
Yeah.
So once you,
oh,
I was just gonna say, once you find a tape that you are interested in, how does it what are the mechanics of going from you got the tape, who owns it? How does it get to the mastering engineer and that sort of thing?
Well, we got to identify the tape. We got to listen to the tape. We have to evaluate it. Is the music looking good? And then oftentimes George will say, okay, Zev, go do a financial analysis on it. And that has become, again, turnkey. We don't just blindly go into a project. We have to have an idea. I've talked to my sales manager. And I come from that world too. So forecasting, we live and die by the numbers. How many are we going to sell? Okay, Zev, let's put together your P&L with all those. Please don't be offended. I use this analogy of we're building these supreme pizzas with all these toppings that go into them. And it works like that because you have a designer, you have photographs, you have mastering engineer, you have an editor, you have publicity, you have mailings that have to go out, all the different musician payments, publishing, mechanicals that have to be done, manufacturing for the paper, for the vinyl, and we can then go all the way to bottom and see based on what we're selling, we have an idea. And that's why we do limited editions, right? I'm not chasing the long tail. A lot of larger companies can do that, and clients that I work for do this. It's a different approach, but a lot of the stuff, most of it, which you see on Resonance, that's why it's limited edition. It's supposed to be collectible for the fans. You're supposed to be in on this special event, and that's how we can justify these numbers. We know if they can work, and sometimes they don't. It's really heartbreaking. Oh man, I really want to make this project work. And we have to look at the mechanics of it before we go. So that's a part of it. Working on the tapes themselves, the audio. Philippe, I'm sorry. Were you going to say something?
No. I'm just listening.
So I was just going to say, there's all these elements, and let's talk about the fidelity in the tapes and listening. And it's very important for us to know what we're working with. And I'm going to say something too that a lot of people, I'm going to go rogue here. I'm going to tell people there are a lot of armchair engineers out there that think that they have understanding. Oh, every time. But did you cut the lacquer from the tape? My friends, I'm going to hate to break it to you, but especially in this universe that we live in, so much work of what we do on our archival side involves the digital realm. You have to make it sound good. When you get a live tapes, you have instances where there are dropouts, where there are musicians that walk off mic. all sorts of different nuances that can affect the listening. And if we just went right from that tape to the lacquer, you would have a subpar, often something that doesn't sound great. And because of the engineers we work with, it's a process. We make it sound great. And that shouldn't really diminish anyone's interest. We always try to make these recordings sound as good as they do. But it's something that I have to tell people, and I don't mean it in a threatening way, and I want to have sensitivity, and we all kind of want to understand the process. But unless if you have a legendary studio album, which was cut and spliced in the studio, and you have that master reel, guess what? Hallelujah. Then you can go right analog. But if I find a live recording, a tape, chances are there needs to be work done to it. But that's for all of our benefit. That's to make it sound good. And then when you have the proprietary technology and genius of a engineer, whether that's Kevin Gray or Bernie Grunman, or I guess you could even talk about Bob Ludwig, or a lot of folks out there, they bring their level of sheen to it, and really enhance it based on their ears. So it goes through a variety of ways, but at the end of the day, we're striving to do the best job sonically possible. And sometimes those have challenges to them. They just do.
Yeah.
So speaking of challenges, just a question that popped. The process seems to be really good. Most of family is really helpful, labels and everything. Did you have instances where you had like something's not going to happen or something that you wish it happened, but the family won't cooperate, or there's no legal basis for getting access to the things? Did you ever have like setbacks like this?
I have. And, it's why I really try to, it's an emotional process. When I'm involved and I want something to come out, I don't want it just to come out to come out. This is the kind of thing that I'm willing to fight to the death. Like I'm willing to, I'm, something I believe. So, but yeah, like some people have the power to say no, and sometimes it's all. I can think of some instances where that has actually happened. And also sometimes I will say it may not be a no, it may be a process. There may not be an estate. We have to have conversations about what we're trying to do and what we're going to accomplish, and how we're going to go about it. And I think that transparency is the best policy. And I always like when I speak to a family representative or an artist, explain the process and what we're doing, so that we're really measuring expectations and we're able to deliver on that. I never want to make any guarantees of something I'm not sure. But anyways, yeah, like it can be challenging, and it's happened, and you know what though? It's okay. George will say to me, Zev, don't worry. There's always something around the corner. And he'll say that to me to kind of calm me down. But we've had projects, just as an example. And by the way, this isn't due to, hey, somebody said no initially. Sometimes it is a process of working with the family. People are busy, people have their own lives, things that happen. Somebody, a loss of a family member, all sorts of people get sick, all sorts of life stuff happens. And you gotta play it long. You gotta be patient. And I'm not always such a patient dude, but this gig has taught me that I need to cool my jets. And thankfully, there's a lot of love and other things that I can be devoting my energies to. So I can keep coming back to things. But Jaco Pastorius, Truth, Liberty, and Soul. Well, I think that was a 6-year journey.
Wow.
All My Yesterdays, Thad Jones, Mel Lewis. Opening night at the Village Vanguard, George Claiborne's tapes once again. That took us years to get those clearances, tracking those people down, finding them.
That's a orchestra? So do you have to contact each family?
In this case, on that project, we did, and it took a really long time. I worked with the late great Jerry Dodgen and Don Sickler, who helped us find people. And now it's gotten It's crazy. I have a private investigator that I work with. They call me the jazz detective, but I have detective that I work with, and his name is Sid. Sydney works with me at Resonance, and it's not as fancy as you might think, but there are databases and things that we can do to research and find people. And I think one of the craziest things that we did, I'm trying to think which artist it was. I'm not really, this may seem a little over the top. We got to be gentle, got to be gentle. But I think it involved finding where an artist was buried and contacting that facility and having them contact the family members. And we were put in touch. I can't remember which project it was. And I think it all worked out. It's hard. It's hard finding people. We make our best efforts. And we, first of all, lead artists, there cannot happen, but sometimes there are not musicians. Sometimes we do our very best, and we're always ready to do what's necessary. But anyways, it's got its challenges sometimes, but it's the adventure. It's so exciting what goes into this, but being respectful when you're speaking with these family members, and being sensitive to how they feel about a family member of theirs. Oftentimes, someone that's deceased, it can really stir up all sorts of personal emotions and feelings. And, there's one artist that I had a chance of doing some work with, who had lost her sister, and she hadn't even had a chance to settle those emotions, and it can stir things up. Got kid gloves. You just got to come at it from a place of love, not make any promises of things that you can't deliver. And at the end of the day, we're just really trying to do our best to do some good. And if nobody wants it to happen, guess what? It's not meant to be, and move on. But usually it's been embraced with a lot of support, which is a nice thing. And I think also because we've been doing it now for a minute. And I think in the beginning was Resonance. Who are you guys?
Yeah.
And it's gotten a little, and that's not to toot our own horn. We're not the only ones that are doing this kind of work. There are other great producers out there. I don't want to hog up all the spotlight. I think it's a nice thing that you guys want to talk to me, but I'm not the only one. And anyways, it's an interesting journey. It really is, all these different experiences that we've had.
Yeah. So now I think we wanted to move on to the show and tell piece of this.
Okay.
So we asked you to pull some records of your
Yes.
thing to kind of speak to them, why they're important to you. So yeah, let's get into it.
All right, sounds good. I brought some things today. We can start anywhere. This one right here, Jackie McLean,
Oh, nice.
Right Now. This is a Music Matters pressing. This was the album that really helped me realize how all analog chain is a really beautiful thing. And I bought this record on the wall at Amoeba 10, 12 years ago. And from the first listen, I was just blown away. I think maybe with you guys too. I know for me, so much of my listening originally to these Blue Note sessions and OJCs was listening on CD. And hearing something in that realm, but hearing it in true analog. This record here, to me, like, showed me how the potential can be greatly realized in a different way. This is something that's meant to go analog all the way. And it's a wonderful release. Jackie McLean was also one of my heroes. I got a chance to know this man a little bit, even the musicians in his band. And when I moved to New York in 1995 at 21 years of age, I was like a groupie, man. I was going to see him at the Vanguard, at the Iridium. I'd go to the Painted Bride in Philadelphia. I'd see him at the Blue Note, and with so many different bands. And Jackie McLean is one of my heroes, and somebody that doesn't get celebrated enough. Just a renegade, an unbelievable talent and spirit, and an amazing human. He dedicated the last 40 so years of his life to being on the straight and narrow, helping other people, and with the Hart School of Music, opening up and influencing a lot of incredible up and coming talent. And I'm just really, I can't say enough about Jackie McLean, one of the greats. And, he, Horace Silver, Freddie Hubbard, Kenny Durham, those guys are in some sort of Larry Young, those guys like Blue Note, like so many of my heroes are there. But J Mac was just somebody that spoke to me profoundly. I want to talk about piano too. I brought this record. This is actually a beautiful cover photograph of Red Garland. This is
Oh, yeah.
When There Are Gray Skies. And to me, this is one of the great trio records. I have really developed an appreciation of the piano trio format, which is almost a subgenre within jazz. When you go to Japan, guys like Tommy Flanagan and Hank Jones were superstars for a reason. Red Garland is somebody that has touched me too. You know, I've been listening to him since round about midnight when I was in my teens. But when you listen to him in those blocked chords, I love Milt Buckner's blocked chords too. But Red Garland does something, and this record is just sublime. Wendell Marshall and Charlie Persip. This is, the notes were from December of '62. I can't remember. I didn't realize this. Ozzy Cadena did this session, but I love this record. I love so much Red Garland. He's one of my favorites. And this is a wonderful picture of that Don Schlitten took outside Rudy Van Gelder's, outside the studio. And anyways, that's one of them. Another one of them. I listen to a lot of different stuff. Here we go. Mobile Fidelity version of Santana 3.
It's a really good.
Oh, nice.
This is a very important record to me personally. Carlos Santana, who has this new documentary out on his life. I can't wait to see it. He's somebody that's been really blowing me away since I was probably 10 years old when I first saw Woodstock on PBS on TV, and Soul Sacrifice changed me. But this album, Santana 3, those first four records, especially the ones that were really involved with Michael Sharif in production with Carlos, this record to me has a start to finish flow to it and energies, which are, I don't know, they infect me somehow. And several years ago, about 7 years ago, I started doing really more actively 10K runs. And this is an album that I listen to start to finish when I'm starting a run. I'll put this on and listen to it in its entirety, especially the first two tracks on the album. But this is really a deep record for me. And all you need to do is listen. Listen to what Carlos is playing. And I sometimes, while I'm doing that run, I feel like I'm literally leaving my body and floating. And all I have to do is just concentrate and focus on Maestro Santana, what he's playing on guitar in these lines. But don't sleep on that record, especially the first four and anything from Carlos. But Santana 3, Desert Island, if there was ever a Desert Island disc. And I'm looking forward to doing a run on July 4th here in Maryland. And I'm going to be listening to that. You better believe it. It's like octane out of the gate. And you got like a groove. Ooh, can't say enough about Santana 3.
Amazing.
So, yeah, I got a few other things here too. Art Tatum on Clef.
Oh, yeah.
This is like, so I have a couple of boxes. They've done these a few times. Tatum is just a marvel to me, someone who I appreciate more and more as the years have gone on. And those solo recordings, there's just something about them, and I appreciate him. I also love David Stone Martin's, one of my favorite illustrators of all time, and he's graced these albums with beautiful artwork. But Art Tatum inspires George Clavin a lot at Resonance, and we have got previously unissued recordings from 1953 that we are going to be putting out next year. 3 LPs worth that the world has never heard before.
Nice.
Just wait, and wait till you see the packaging, the presentation, the music. Matt Luthen's worked on it. I gotta hold back a few details.
Is it a small group? Is it solo?
These are trio recordings.
Okay.
But it'll be something to celebrate Tatum in a major way. That'll be for springtime of 2024.
Awesome.
I brought some 45s with me today because we say it's show and tell, right? But a number of years ago, I inherited a very special collection into my collection. And I had this wonderful journey working with a family on a West Montgomery project. And a family member gifted me a collection of some 45s. And I showed you the Chet Baker before. I have the Dave Brubeck Quintet, jazz interwoven, autographed by all 4 members of the group.
Oh, that's so cool.
Wow.
And this is like one of the rarest things that I have.
I've never seen that.
Yeah.
Is that colored vinyl on Fantasy?
You know what? It's a 45, and these are 245 discs.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, that's amazing.
Very cool.
So, but man, they're all on there. Desmond, Eugene Wright, and Joe Morello all signed it with Brubeck. And
Oh,
this gentleman went around and collected things. But hold on, you're going to drool some more. You might as well grab your napkins while you're at it.
I got plenty here.
Um, this is another one. I have 2 Lester Youngs that are signed.
Oh my goodness.
oh,
This is
cool.
autographed too. And this was sometime, I'm assuming, the 50s. There's a $1.59
Okay.
pencil mark on the back. I guess that's what this sold for originally.
Wow.
So
That's
this is the
amazing.
Lester Young trio, and then there's another one we have here, Lester Young with the Oscar Peterson trio. They're
Oh,
both
yeah.
signed.
Wow.
But these are cool, and I actually play these. And
Nice.
I think they're a lot of fun. And I have one too. Here we go. This is a Charlie Parker 45. I've shared some of these online, but signed by Miles.
Oh,
Oh my goodness.
signed by Miles.
And
Is
it's
it?
autographed by Max Roach on the back.
And
Oh,
Miles
great.
plays on that? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a comp, right? I think there's a 12-inch. There's a comp of this one.
Yeah, it's with Walter Bishop Jr., Bird, Miles, Teddy Kotick, and Max.
You know,
Wow.
that's funny, Walter Bishop Jr.'s on that, because when you put out Bish at the Bank, I wasn't too familiar with him. I had his Black Jazz title.
Uh-huh.
And in the promotional material, it said that he was a bebopper.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't know that he went back that far. So it's cool that he's on that record with Charlie Parker.
He was, I mean, he really was deeply rooted into the tradition, and that was all echoed in his music that he was making. And man, those Muse records, everything. Walter Bishop Jr. is great. That was a labor of love doing Bish at the Bank. Had to fight really hard on that. What else do I have here? Hank Williams Jr., Ramblin' Man 45. This is really kind of a cool
Very cool.
record that I acquired years ago. I love the artwork on so much of these projects, but this is an MGM recording. I listen to a lot of different stuff here too. Here, I'll close out the 45s. I have an Ellington and a Krupa one, which I'll leave. Oh, and my Uncle Abe plays on this Les Brown band renowned
That is
very
very cool.
live album on choral.
Yeah.
Alvin A. Barron. But I want to show you something too. This is an unbelievable package. The Hawk and Flight. It's a 345 set on RCA. And the packaging is stellar. It's not autographed, I don't think. No, but it's amazing and it sounds great.
That's so cool.
Folks out there should check this out. I'm sure there's a 12-inch version of it. But the Hawk and Flight, which is a great record.
Well, there was a lot of those that came out, right? Zev, like that was one of the main formats that people were buying records before the LPs took over, right?
Indeed. And I actually have others, Don Elliott's. I'm trying to think of Shorty Rogers, on RCA. I'm just trying to pull it out of the air. Those guys that recorded on that label. Great stuff. Really terrific music. Okay. How many of you guys know this record? I would hope we should all be revisiting this one. Rip Rag and Panic, Rasan. An amazing album. Jackie Byard, Richard Davis, and Elvin Jones. 33 minutes of just exhilarating music. And this isn't a promo copy, but I'm going to move the camera back. My microphone too. On on Limelight, they really did some very deluxe, creative, outside the box packaging. But all you need to do is listen to this. This is as good as it gets.
I'll check that out for sure.
And it's intense. Rasan made a couple of records for this label, including Slightly Latin. I'm trying to remember what the title was. I have that one downstairs too. But Rip Rag and Panic, definitely Desert Island. If I had to choose something to bring with me. Here we go. I have a thing also for classical piano recitals, which I've been collecting since my 20s when I worked at Polygram representing Deutsche Grammophon, Decca, and Philips. And I have a lot of them on CD, but I've been collecting a lot of them on vinyl going back. Sviatoslav Richter was one of the great Russian pianists, concert pianist, and just an amazing guy, a man who just was a genius. And I really love his music. He recorded also for RCA and EMI and Melodica. Is that it? Melodia out of Russia. But these Deutsche Grammophon records, there's just really some amazing music to hear. When I listen, when I'm working, I believe it or not, this is going to surprise people, but I don't always listen to jazz, and I need to be paying attention and focusing. But piano sonatas are something, those are actually concertos, but the piano sonatas in particular, Beethoven, Schubert, Brahms, Liszt, are things that like I can put on and it just washes over me. And I'm like, I love listening to it when I'm writing. There's something about it. It's just amazing. Richter, though, is, and I love Martha Argerich and Maurizio Pollini and Benedetti. They're all these different dudes, man. But the classical piano is a whole thing. Maybe one day, I'm really hoping, I'd love to do something archival there too. Also, let's talk about, we were talking about Chet Baker before. You guys all know these records.
Oh yeah.
There are about 5 of them that were done with this band with George Coleman, Kurt Lightsey, Herman Wright, and Roy Brooks. And these were produced by a guy named Richard Carpenter, who I believe may have been Chet's manager at the time. I think there are 5 of these records in total. All of them are incredible to me. I love the band. What a recipe of incredible flavors of these sounds of these musicians that come together, but they're great. And I got them all. And these records, this is really special. This is great. Chet Baker.
You need to talk to some of your people in the industry and tell them they should put those out as a box set. That would sell like crazy.
They've been out on CD before. They put them out together. If you so much, I would love to do that. Boy, oh boy. You not all record labels license stuff out too, and some of them are involved in very relationships that often have to happen. Majors or these companies don't always do that. But would I like to do that? Absolutely. And I want to tell you about, I'm also a blues guy too. And for me, that started with a love of a lot of the chess artists, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Little Walter. But I have really been bitten by the bug of the great Sam Lightning Hopkins. This is actually a record that I believe has been reissued lately, and it was recorded at Rudy Van Gelder's. But Lightning Hopkins to me is somewhat of an enigma. He has his own style of singing, and the way that he accentuates certain words, and when he sings, his guitar playing has a sound. There is just something to me that really pulls me in about Lightning Hopkins and his music, and I'm really hoping that I'll have a chance to do a project soon. But he speaks to me in a way, it's funny, sometimes you have to listen to other music to come back to recognize how really great it is after maybe your ears have been primed. I listen to so much blues music, but Lightning Hopkins has been a guy that speaks to me. I'm going to put this one on. I bought this at Amoeba. Yeah, there's a price tag on it. There's that yellow sticker on the back.
Yeah.
But Lightning Hopkins, it is great. And I brought up one other thing. I brought one other thing too. I got, Tokyo Blues, Horace Silver.
Oh yeah.
Horace was like a religion for me, and a language, and a music, and a style. He had all these different traits in his musical identity, and somebody that really inspired me. I'm lucky I saw him twice. He actually signed a bunch of things for me because I was a young kid outside the dressing room door. I met him. I saw him twice at the Blue Note. I love Horace Silver, though. I think when I think back to guys like he and Jackie McLean, they were the ones that really like grabbed me by the collar and brought me in to the music and really opened me up to how enjoyable listening to this music was, and the sounds and everything. I just love. Anyways, I can't say enough. This music touches us. What about you guys? You have your records too, and we all have our own experiences. What are your
Yeah.
experiences? I'm doing all the talking.
Well, no, that was great. So we always say that we all have different journeys. We intersect a lot. We like a lot of the same music, but we all came in different ways. We all kind of are searching for our own path. And yeah, I think that's just something that we're always kind of reinforcing.
Hmm.
Well, now we've got this community that we've created too on YouTube, and we're a small channel, but like every Friday we have 100 people hanging out with us, chatting with us, coming up on the screen and showing records and getting excited about things. And I guarantee you, a lot of those records you just showed are going to be sold out on Discogs after this video comes out. You and Joe Harley are like tastemakers, man. I'm telling you. So, how many records do you have in your collection, Zev? Do you think?
I had to recently tabulate this. I have another secret too. Last year, after 17 years in Los Angeles, I uprooted my life and I relocated to the Washington, D.C. area. I actually moved closer here to be closer to my mom and dad, and my brother, and I have a niece nearby too. But in the process, we had to box all this stuff up very carefully. And I estimate it's about 5,300 records.
Nice.
Okay.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Oh my God. You have no idea what going out of my mind. Can we get these in the warm? It was like in June or July when they were shipped across country. Boxes inside of boxes, talking with the guys like in LA at Freak Beat. I think there were a couple of others like, what's the best way? And it all worked out. I played a lot of these records. They survived, and I brought the rarest ones on the airplane on the last flight that I had. I had them all in a bag. I actually had a few other interesting Blue Note records too. The Cooker, an original of that, Clifford
Oh.
Jordan, a bunch of different things. But
Which Cliff Jordan?
I have the one with the painting on the cover. It's a Blue Note release. Is that with?
Is that the yellow? It's yellow and white.
Yeah, is that Lee Morgan and Curtis Fuller on that
Yeah,
too?
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
great one.
You don't see it that often.
No, yeah.
And that was a record that I actually got from the family of Shirley Horn. I got a few OGs. I got a Sonny's Crib as
Okay.
well, which was great, and the Cooker.
Oh yeah.
Those are like some of the rarest.
Sonny's Crib is like one of my favorite Blue Notes.
Got Coltrane on there and Donald
Yep.
Byrd, right?
I think that's right. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
great. They do oh, I think on side 2 they do a standard. I can't remember it, but it's fantastic. The whole album's great. I have the Music Matters 45 of it, and it sounds incredible.
Oh man, don't those sound? I love the 45 ones.
So when I go for Music Matters, I try to go get the 45s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm even thinking the Gooden's Corner, the Grant Green.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
there's one of those I have, and they're double. Sometimes it's a little inconvenient having to get
Yeah.
up to flip it as much, but it's not bad. It's okay.
I agree. Yeah.
It's fun.
Golden Score is one of the hardest Music Matters to find. I think it's really, really valuable now. I think it's like
Wow.
a $400 record, easy.
$400. Oh my gosh. And it's cool. And I love those King pressings too, like with those covers. Like they didn't come out in the States originally. A lot of that stuff only came out in Japan. It's amazing. The LT series on Blue Note's another one. It's been really beautiful to see what Don Was and Blue Note's been able to do, bringing new life into those recordings. I think it's remarkable. Even the Raja, some of these, like where they put new covers on them, utilizing those great images. And they deserve the facelift. That's just my opinion. And I think I applaud them. It's been really, it's wonderful. And it's nice. It's just like a whole new wave of people talking about these records.
Do you keep up with those like reissue series? I mean, you pay attention to all that stuff?
Not, I see it peripherally, and I definitely see when the press release goes out and I look at that stuff because it's eye candy and just, oh my
Oh
gosh.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the Third Man group of releases
Oh, yeah.
coming. I
Yep.
mean,
That's
good.
Yeah.
I don't, to be clear, I don't work on those.
Sure.
But it's exciting. I mean, it's an unbelievable company. And it's so nice to see Blue Note getting celebrated and re-celebrated and turning new people on. I think it's what's needed.
yeah. I mean, yeah. Third Man, Jack White have a huge following amongst younger people. I think is the best way to reach out to them and call attention for sure.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Final question. I mean, final whatever. Just one thing that I
Sure,
thought,
we keep going. I'm having a great time with you guys. I hope it's going to be dimensional and some multi-dimensional. I feel like hope I'm not too monotone.
No, you're great.
It's been
Yeah.
great,
We're
guys.
delighted,
Super
for sure.
exciting.
Thanks so much. Appreciate that.
So Zev, do you keep in touch? Let's say you and let's say sometimes you're going to release something, or Joe Hart is releasing something, or whoever other most prestigious labels. Do you guys talk to each other about what you're doing? I mean, I know there's a whole competition thing, blah blah blah, but just general lines. Oh, what do you think of this title, that title? I just did this, I just did that. Is there such interchange?
It's interesting. Not as much as of late. And I'm often, just because I'm in my own lane, nose to the grindstone, doing my thing with my team. But I've gotten very nice feedback. People like Joe Harley and others definitely have, like, it's a nice to get feedback when it's positive, I guess. But that's what it's been. I mean, I have so many esteemed colleagues that I really admire and respect, and can always learn something from someone. So it's happened, and it's a nice thing. I should probably speak with them more often, some of my colleagues, but I have to tell you, and this has been really a blessing, that the days really fly by so quickly for me every day. And not always the case, but in my life. But nowadays it's like it's at a breakneck pace sometimes. And anyways, it just has made life very exciting. Literally about 30 years ago, when I was starting out in the music business, I was working overnights at a gas station, and with dreams of doing what I'm doing now, and not knowing. I mean, the first 15 years of my career were working on sales and marketing. I just feel really fortunate, and I really try to practice gratitude and just appreciate what I've got, and it also inspires me to try to keep going and going harder, and raising the bar. So anyways, I hope that answers some of your question.
Yeah, no, you've been great, Zev. I just wanted to thank you for swinging by, getting to know us. The door is always open if you want to come back, if you have new projects you want to talk about.
Sure.
I
Appreciate
hope
it.
we'll have follow-ups. And yeah,
Sure.
thank you so much for doing this.
You guys are great, and I just wish you all the luck too, expanding, your reach out and into the market, and getting the chance for more people to connect with all this. I think it's a wonderful thing that you guys are doing, and it's so nice of you to be interested in wanting to talk with me. Let's keep in touch. I've got to have, it's
Yeah.
going to be a good, the close out this year is going to be very exciting. We've got new projects from Wes Montgomery, Les McCann coming, more unissued, never before out, Bill Evans, Ahmad Jamal,
Oh yeah,
Al Jader.
Yeah.
yeah.
It's going to be a really exciting fall, and there'll be details to follow. I'm embargoed on what I can share, and I want
Okay.
to be respectful of that, but I'd be happy to. And I'm just going to say again, let's keep going. Let's do this.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Thank you so much for your generosity today. Thanks for having me, and keep in touch. All right.
No.
All right.
Thank you,
All
Zev.
the best.
Thank
Take
you,
care
Zev.
now. See
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye
Cheers.
bye.